Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Mystic Vale Essential Edition from AEG. Mystic Vale is a card crafting game using John D. Clare's card crafting system, a system that Mystic Vale that AEG has used in a few games, including Mystic Vale, including Custom Heroes, which may or may not have been from AEG, I don't recall, including Dead Reckoning, including Edge of Darkness, including a bunch of games that utilize this card crafting system. This card crafting system has you having a deck of cards that you're going to slowly craft the cards. So think deck building, but not actually deck building. Instead of building a deck, you are, well, crafting cards. You're going to have your standard deck of cards, which will vary game by game, but you have a standard deck of cards, 20 cards over here, that you're going to go through 5 cards at a time, going through your deck every 4 turns. Along the way, you're going to be crafting cards. You're going to be grabbing these little cards over here that you can go ahead and slip into your cards, which will slowly but surely modify your deck. So different abilities with different placements on them, you can see will craft out different cards with different combinations on them in ways that interact, building and crafting out your cards. Now you're going to start the game with some blank cards. As you can see over here, I have a blank card, but I also have a fertile soil over here, and I also have a fertile soil and a cursed land over here, and those cursed lands are a big part of the game because you're trying to basically get enough resources to buy the right cards to eventually get to a point where the points on the game are going to be eaten up by you, and you will then add up the points you got in game, the points on your cards, and you'll have as many points as possible, well, ideally the most points, because the most points will help you win. To that end, you're going to go ahead and start drawing cards. When you draw cards in this game, you don't actually have a typical 5-card hand like I said before. Rather, you have a hand of cards in which you're going to keep drawing until you get enough, well, problems. It's a push your luck mechanism. What you want to do is you're going to reveal a card, and you're going to say, hey, a fertile soil, that's totally fine. Let's reveal them left to right over here. We have a cursed land. That's going to be one symbol over there. We need to be mindful of that. We have another cursed land over here, and you're always playing with the top card of your deck face up. So right now we have 2 cursed lands. We're still good to go. We have another blank card over here. We're still good to go. Another blank card, still good to go. Another blank card, still good to go. Another blank card, still good to go. Holy, we're going through all the blank cards over here. But over here, you can see over here now we have a cursed land over here, and this is where we have a decision to play. Because the top card of the deck, which is not in play, we currently have these cards in play, plus a bunch of blank cards that will slowly augment. But we have these cards in play. We have 4 mana to spend. If I draw this card and we don't have, if we have another cursed soil, cursed land on top, whenever you have 4 symbols showing, both from your on-card deck as well as the cards in play, then you bust effectively. So I can go ahead and draw this if I want. Maybe I will. Now normally I wouldn't right now because I already have 4 to spend, but let's pretend that I am right now. And there we go, we just busted. We now have 4 symbols showing, which means we busted. Normally I would not do that. I'd leave this on play, on deck, and then we'd have 4 to spend over here that we can spend on the market to buy a variety of cards. You'll see you have different cards over here that give you different costs on them depending on the spot on the card they have over here. So for example, with that 4 over there, I can go ahead and buy one of these 3s over here, which is going to be a great level 1 advancement that I can go ahead and craft onto one of the cards that I just played, which is where I have to decide, do I want a really impactful turn by adding this field of flowers to a fertile soil? Do I want to try to modulate my cursed lands? Or do I want to start another card from scratch, which will give me more options over here? Because of the fact that it doesn't have any specific helm symbols, which are going to be very relevant to other cards, I think I'm going to go ahead and modify my fertile soil, give me the opportunity to have very, very, very productive turns where I can get this 3 mana as well as others to go ahead and get more cards. These will go into my discard pile. I'll move this off to the side, and then next turn we'll go ahead and continue the cycle, drawing that top card, playing it, and again, slowly but surely, and now we already have, this time I'm going to go ahead and go for it. Chance of me having another cursed land are, I'm safe. And I think I'll leave that on top and go with my 3 over here to buy the next advancement. And that's basically what you're doing over here. You have your mana being generated by the cards. You have that push your luck mechanism of too many of those red trees will go ahead and counter, will go ahead and have you bust. Although you also have some degree of control of that because, for instance, things like this card over here, a green tree negates a red tree. Tossing that onto the cursed land effectively negates the cursed land. Tossing it onto a fertile soil, well, not that card over there. Tossing it onto another blank card over here doesn't necessarily negate the card itself, but will give you options to negate various cursed lands that you draw during the course of the game. And so you're trying to gather those. You're also trying to gather text-based effects. So, for example, over here we have ongoing cancel all but 1 on this card. That can be very helpful when you add something like this to, let's say, this card over here, and you also add this to that card over there. You'll see you now have 2 on this card, but you're only going to count 1 of them against yourself. Adding 2 of those trees to your cards is a very risky way to proceed in the game because they could be very, very, very advantageous, but also could result in you busting when you're not prepared to do so. And so that's basically what's going on. You're building up this card market, you're generating cards, you're going to have cards that generate you more resources, more points. These are going to be your point systems that you have over here. And you're going to have cards that will give you points both as they come through, as well as endgame points, and you'll have cards that give you helms too. This card over here is giving giving you a helm that can be very useful, especially as you add other cards that count other helms. Many of the cards in play will count the number of helms you have in a card, giving you an advantage, giving you an opportunity to build up a card chock full of helms and score points based on that. You're also going to have these little resources over here, these little symbols over here, which if you have enough cards with enough of those symbols, so example, let's say we have this card over here on this, and we play both these cards, we've now generated 2 of those, which means we can go ahead and get this Radiant Pinnacle over here. This card market over here is going to give you the opportunity to get more cards that stay in play. These cards will stay in play, giving you their ability every single turn. They don't go into the deck building system, they're just giving you ongoing abilities and or points. Harvest, gain an extra, green symbol over there. That's going to be very helpful. So you can have these opportunities to get these cards that will give you points or endgame scoring or in-game scoring or all those different things, and that is basically what's going on in Mystic Vale. Craft your deck. It's not deck building, it's deck crafting. You're building a better deck the same way you would in deck building, but with a different way, a different format of the way that's handled. And then along the way, you're trying to get as many points as possible before the point market dries up. And you can go to endgame scoring, counting out the points you earned in game, the points on your veils, the points on your cards, the points you have from basically everything. And that is Mystic Vale. Now, this is the Essential Edition, which means it comes with 3 expansions mixed in. We're going to have the Veil of Magic, the Veil of Wild, and the Veil of Magic, the Veil of the Wild, and Mana Storm as the 3 expansions. And then Mystic Vale in general as a concept has a whole bunch of other expansions you can get, as well as the Essential Edition over here, all giving you minor adjustments to the flavoring of the deck. They're all going to give you small slight adjustments, nothing game breaking, a few small mechanical adjustments, a lot more text than cards, different ways that the cards and engine will interact with one another while still using the same basic system. There will not be drastic changes, there will be light changes and flavors as you mix in different expansions to craft the Mystic Vale experience that you're looking for. Which brings us to review, starting off with ease of play. Ease of play, the game is fairly easy to dive into. The rulebook can seem a bit overwhelming at first, but there's a lot of extra stuff that isn't really necessary for you to fully understand what's going on. If you go through the rulebook, it takes a few pages. This is card crafting. All you're doing, to give you context, the last time I taught someone this game, I gave myself a 2-minute timer, and I made it within those 2 minutes. I was able to teach him the full game within 2 minutes. Granted, he knew deck building, and he actually knew card crafting as well, and so he was walking with an advantage, but past that, the game is a very simple engine. The game is a deck building, a card crafting experience. You're going to be building out your cards. You have some small technicalities as far as how you run the market or different questions, but the main things to teach are the push your luck mechanism, and then the difference between the market over here and the market over here, how those things are different, how those interact, but that's basically it. Past that, it's about generating the resources you need to buy more cards, to build a better deck, to have the most efficient deck, and to drive endgame forward as you gather more points faster and better and more efficiently than the other players at the table. As far as player count, this is a 2 to 4 player game. I played this game at 2 and 3 players. Have enjoyed it at both. Because of the lack of interaction in this game, I find that both experiences work totally fine. This isn't a game where I felt the need for a third player, nor does a third player take away from the experience. Both 2 and 4 worked reasonably well. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off the bat with what I liked, which is card crafting in general. I've enjoyed card crafting since I first played it, and Dead Reckoning was the first game from AEG, or the first game in general, that I played that had card crafting in it. And I've enjoyed that concept. It kind of gives you all the advantages of deck building while feeling like you have more control over the combination of when the cards come out. One of the big problems you have in deck building is the fact that at any given point you can have any degree of combinations of different things, and it feels like there's a little less control, a little bit more reliance on the randomness, and I feel that card crafting, while it still has that, it has it less so. Because you're building your cards as you go, because you can save those advancements to build on the right card and to combine things in the right way, it often means that you have a little bit more control over how your deck will come out, over which things will come out together, and I like that extra degree of control. I like it as well in Mystic Vale. Additionally, the ongoing in-play cards feel nice to have. The fact that they can give you extra mana, extra abilities. Many of them are going to be just point-based, but they all give you a different element to be added to the game, and it's a combination of in-play versus not in-play. This is a system I think I first saw with Star Realms, but I always appreciated the idea of having cards in a deck-building game in which some of them stay in play and some of them are part of your deck building. And this is card crafting, but that principle, that idea still exists here. And the ability to play and craft other cards that build off of symbols is something, again, that we've seen in Dead Reckoning. Again, for me, Dead Reckoning came after, but I played first. But that idea that you can build out a card that's not just a combination of 2 or 3 different effects, but it's a combination of 2 or 3 different effects that play off one another. You get extra stuff for the more helms you have, but you can put more helms in this card. You'll have these sidebar abilities that we haven't even talked about yet. These little sidebar abilities abilities that go alongside the card that give you an additional effect that's not related to a specific one of the 3 things over there. The fact that you can build and craft a card experience based on the way you want a few things to hit at once. Maybe the combination of the green and the red trees so they cancel each other out. Maybe loading up 3 trees on the same card, which can be incredibly problematic when it causes you to bust, but could be the right card at the right time and giving you an incredibly powerful effect rather than distributing it. The fact that you have this control all over the place, the fact that you have this control over the way you build your cards and to craft the right combination of things is very incredibly satisfying. And then the expansions. The expansions give you a lot of room to grow at the same time. The expansions give you a lot of more variety, and this game has a ton of expansions. I've only dived into the ones in this box, but the expansions give you a ton more variety to the experience, although variety with a grain of salt. This is where one of the things I don't like. In fact, let's go ahead and shift immediately to the things we don't like with that. While the expansions and the room to grow in this game are solid, and they give you a lot of stuff. If you like Mystic Vale, there's like 8 different expansions you can dive into. There's a lot of content for this game. At least with the expansions in this box, I will say they didn't drastically vary up the experience for me. It felt like it was more cards, but possibly because of the fact that these little boxes over here are very small and there's not a lot of room for text-based effects. I felt that a lot of the expansion comes down to just more of the same, more technically different cards, but not cards that feel necessarily different, and only a handful of cards in each expansion where they like cool effects that can integrate with different ways. So I both felt that having expansions to modify the game was a nice degree of potential variety, while also feeling that the expansions weren't hugely game-breaking, possibly because of the limitations and restrictions around how much text you can throw on any one ability. Additionally, the fact that the push your luck system in this game feels a bit out of place. This whole aspect over here where you push your luck, you try to get the perfect turn, there is a counter effect when you push your luck, you get the extra mana for the next turn, so it's not all, completely terrible when things don't go right. But it felt like a push your luck engine, which while I appreciate the fact that they're including a different thing in the game to kind of give you more of a varied experience than a typical deck builder, I just didn't feel that push your luck felt like the right thing to be thrown into this game. To me personally, it felt out of place. I like push your luck in the right systems. This to me didn't feel like the right system for it. Additionally, the game pacing felt a bit off. Whenever I play Mystic Vale, I find that I hit that endgame a little sooner than I'd like, considering how much ramping I think there still is to go. You only get to lightly dabble into the level 3 cards, only having a few of them, and only having them come out 1 or 2 times before you start hitting that endgame. The number of points in the pool before you eventually have to close up shop and go to the final rounds of the game just means that I constantly feel when I play Mystic Vale that I'm just getting going before things start to head to a close. Now, granted, this is something you can easily house rule if you experience that, by just adding more points to the pot. It's not a hard problem to fix if you experience that as a problem. But for me, at least with the predetermined amount of points you'll have at various player counts, I feel that by the time you hit level 3, the game is basically closing up shop, and I feel like I'm just getting started when the game is ending. And similarly, on the same note, I feel there's a slow initial ramp to the gameplay. Now, this wasn't the problem on the first play, because the first play you're still learning, you're still experiencing, but as you play this game more, at least as I play this game more, I find that the initial start to the game feels much more samey and predictable than other deck building games. This is a classic problem with deck builders in general, to be very clear. That idea that you're starting with a very scripted deck that follows a certain pattern, and so initially the first part of the game tends to feel very samey as you work your way up towards actual variety within the system. But I think that problem to me felt more prevalent in Mystic Vale. It felt more like it was an issue, again, perhaps because of the fact that the way these cards are, building out your cards is very cool, but the text-based effects are more on the lower side, and so they're less frequent, less common, which means to a degree there's a feeling of familiarity that you're hitting again and again, especially when you're starting from scratch and working your way up. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, card crafting in general. I've heard people whine and complain excessively. Whine and complain sounds mean. I've heard people critique card crafting in general as being a little too heavy on the cleanup of it, as you slowly unsleeve every card, putting them around the right pile, and I understand where that's coming from. To me, I don't know if I felt that was any different than regular cleanup in any deck building experience, but hey, if you don't want to go through a bunch of cards and sleeves and pull out all the things you need, then yes, this might not be a system for you, or any card crafting system. Additionally, the lack of interaction. Now, lack of interaction for me is case by case as to whether I'm concerned with it. It depends on the game. I find many games benefit from interaction, and many games don't necessarily need it. But there definitely is a lack of interaction, or a lack of meaningful interaction in Mystic Vale. For the most part, you're drawing cards to the market, and then you're doing your own engine, building your own cards. The closest thing to interaction is, oh no, you took that card I really wanted, which does happen, to be fair, but it doesn't happen excessively so. This is a fairly low interaction deck building game where it mostly comes down to building your own engine and then having a slight degree of competition over getting the same cards that are in either of the markets at play. This is definitely a low interaction deck builder or card crafter, but take that into account as to whether this is an experience for you or not. As far as final thoughts and rating on Mystic Vale, I walked into Mystic Vale being uncertain as to whether it was a game for me to begin with. I tried card crafting with Dead Reckoning from AEG, a game that I thoroughly enjoy, and from then I wanted to try out other card crafting games in the system, and while Edge of Darkness feels like it's a bit too much, I already have Dead Reckoning, I don't know if I need 2 big box card crafting systems. Mystic Vale seemed like a good place to jump to next. It seemed like a good place that would give me that card crafting, but with an experience that's easier to table than Dead Reckoning, because much as I love Dead Reckoning, it's not the easiest game to table on a regular basis. And I like deck builders, and I like that system in general, and so I thought that Mystic Vale would work for me, but unfortunately for the most part, it hasn't. It's not a bad game, to be very clear. I enjoy it, and I think it's totally fine, but while I like the card crafting system, and I love how AEG has taken John D. Clare's system and expanded it to other games, and I hope to see it used in other games in the future, I really enjoy the system and how it can be utilized, I do feel that Mystic Vale is totally okay. I don't feel it wows me, I don't feel it amazes me, I feel it gives me a solid game that I enjoy playing, but that I would typically choose other deck builder experiences that feel a little more directional, that while I appreciate the card crafting, and while I like what it does, and I want to see it done more, and even within this game, I like what it does, I really do. But the result of what you're working towards in Mystic Vale just felt a little bit more ambient to me, a little bit less focused, and a little bit less of an engine that I particularly want to dive into. For me, overall, this is a 3 out of 5. I really like the promise and premise of card crafting. I really like where AEG has already taken this, and I hope to see more of it. While Mystic Vale as a system, again, I only tried the expansions in this particular Essential Edition, so I can't comment on the full ecosystem. But for me, overall, this is one that feels good without feeling great. As far as other game recommendations, obviously Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning will be the first game recommendation I give from this. If you like card crafting and you want to see it done in a better system, I think Dead Reckoning is absolutely fantastic. And if you like if you like games like this in general and you want my go-to for this genre, then Dominion. Dominion's going to be one of my go-to deck builders, and while it's not card crafting, card crafting and deck building are very adjacent in terms of the experience I get out of them, and Dominion gives me the same feeling for what Mystic Vale is going for, but I like that one a lot more. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.